Hey guys, Dylan from the Geek Duo here, and today I'll be bringing you my reaction to RWBY Fairy Tales Episode 6, titled The Warrior in the Woods. A young boy meets a mysterious warrior protecting his village from afar. And this is the last of the RWBY Fairy Tales that got animated. And I highly doubt they're going to do the other half of the book because, well, some of those actually are ones that appeared in the show, unlike the last one, which didn't actually turn out to be 100%. And the fact that it's been almost 3 years since this episode came out, and there's been no talk about anything. Also because Rooster Teeth being shut down and everything, but it could get picked up as like a later down the line project. But anyway, yes, so let's get this started in 3, 2, 1, go. And I only remember one thing about this episode. I wasn't expecting to hear Tai Yang and RWBY in this. Yep, that's gone. I, for one, would not follow the glowing bug. Don't normally see blood associated with Grimm. Not ever really seen any hook swords. Or, well, curved, I guess. What is he carving the... Well, yeah, he was carving the girl. I don't think that tiny knife is gonna protect you. Does that sort of sound like Raven? Yeah, okay, that's better. Nevermore's. You'd think they'd still be able to attack the village. So much for being on his own. I figured she couldn't protect her own village, so she's gonna protect some. Hmm. Hmm. That's an issue. Hmm. You're seeing summer in that. Okay, so the thing about Silver Eyes is the thing that I remembered. I thought that actually played a part into the story, but no, it's just the kindly silver-eyed warrior who was protecting this random village. She had, well, silver eyes, wore a hood, had long black hair, and a boy with blue eyes and blonde hair fell for her. Now what does that sound like? That sounds like Ty falling for Summer. So I wouldn't be surprised if, since some of these are dedicated by actual people, usually it's people close to Ozpin, or it's traditional sources. There are a couple that say unknown, which I'm pretty sure are Ozpin's like own lives stories. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this one's dedicated by Ty because of the whole silver-eyed aspect. But I guess I'll find that out when I read it to compare. Be back in a sec. Okay, so again, I will say that this one does have a bit of a different tone in the original. And for one, I just want to say this is not the weapon that's described in the actual story. The weapon that she uses in the fairy tale picture and in this episode, sure, it does fall under the same category of weapon, that being it is a bill hook, but it's described as the the pike version, or whatever you want to call it, version in the story. Yet both the image and the episode show the sword version. I just find that weird. Also, I was wrong. This was submitted by Glinda, not Ty. So, anyway, immediately, right at the start, there's a difference because the village in this is described as being on the edge of the lush forest. It's not in the middle of the forest like it is in the episode, but it's known far and wide as the safest place on the land. the creatures of Grimm had not attacked since long before anyone could remember, which to me makes it sound like it's been generations since there's been Grimm attacks, which doesn't really make sense with the story, considering if it was just this one girl, well, one woman who was protecting the village, surely the older people would have known about them. But yeah. And it says the woods themselves, they said the woods protected the people. So long as no one dared to enter the forest, the woods would keep the monsters out. And the people of the town, they were carefree, just went about their day as regular people do, not having to worry about anything. And the children, they didn't even know what Grimm were, they having grown up and never seen one. So they started playing around the edges of the forest, playing games like dipping in and out of the trees, hide and seek. And one day, the boy in the story decided to venture further than anyone would think to look for him. And as he waited, the day went on, and as night fell, he heard the sounds of the forest awaken around him. All the nocturnal creatures, all the insects and that, and he decided to go investigate. And as he wandered through, he eventually came across the clearing. And while he was in the clearing, he was found by a Borbertusk. And, well, he'd never seen a Grimm before, so he had no idea what to expect. All he could do was just scream. And as the creature charged at him, he closed his eyes, stuck his hands out, expecting the impact, but it never came. Or at least it came from a different angle than he was expecting, because he was suddenly pushed out of the way, and he saw a tall woman in a flowing black cape facing off against the Grimm. And yeah, the Grimm actually turns and runs away from the girl in this, and so she chases after it. She actually uses the pole of her bill hook to vault herself over the Grimm and slash it with the blade as she's traveling. And that's how she dispatches it in the story. And she's like, "Go home, you never saw me," and then immediately tries to leave. But he tells her to stop, and she does. And so he can hobble over to her because he sprained his ankle when she pushed him out of the way. And up close, he realizes that she's in very tattered clothes. Like, the cloak's threadbare and, like, hand-mended. The grey blouse may have been white once. Her leggings were covered in mismatched patches. And she was also older than he was expected because she had white hairs standing out amongst the sea of black. And her weapon was chipped, and the handle was beginning to crack. So she's obviously been out there with no resources for a long time. He thanks her and says, "Can you at least tell me your name?" But she disappears, so he goes home. As he happens in the episode, he doesn't tell anyone about the woman, but he does tell him about the creature he encountered, and that narration is pretty much word for word from the story. Like, believed his safe return was proof the woods protected them, and they continued living the way they were, but the boy had seen the truth, so he watched the woods with caution. And yeah, so a year later, he returned to the clearing of the woods, and not encountering her, he dared go a bit further, and to a part of the woods that even in the daytime it was dark, and he realized as he was walking that he was being followed and turned around to see a Beowulf. Now, he did bring a dagger with him this time when he went into the forest, but the sight of this giant wolf charging him down, he froze. And just as the thing was about to charge into him, the woman dropped down onto the creature's back and started hacking away at it with her billhook, which in the year between him seeing her last, the handle had snapped. So she had like a blade and a bit of the pole in one hand, and she'd fastened the other side into a stake, which she rammed into the Beowulf's face to kill it. It literally says she jammed it into one of its eyes. He thanks her and she's like, "You again?" To which he was surprised she remembers her, and their conversation is pretty much the exact same that it was in the episode. However, he does hold up the dagger and say, "I came prepared this time at least," and that gets a laugh out of her. He's like, "I came looking for you." She's like, "I don't train people to fight anymore," which is information we didn't get in the episode, saying she used to train people to fight, which is interesting. But no, he takes off his backpack and hands it out to her, and inside she sees there are several outfits for her to wear. She's like, "What's this?" He's like, "They're new clothes." "Well, not entirely new. They belong to my mom." She's like, "Did she die?" "No, she just doesn't wear them anymore and asked me to donate them to someone who needed them, and so that's what I'm doing." So, "I don't need anything, and I can't accept these anyway." "Why not? It's the least I can do." "The least you can do is leave," but yeah, she eventually accepts the gift, and she's like, "Next time you come, you're on your own." The boy then goes back the following year, quietly moving through the trees, almost as quiet as the woman, he notes, and he makes it much further than he did the last time, almost to the center of the forest. And as he's refreshing himself with a stream that's running nearby, he looks up and notices 3 nevermores above him. He draws a long, thin sword, which he had forged at the village, and like the blacksmith is like, "Why would you want a close range weapon when you can hunt with a bow and arrow or a spear?" But he manages to take out 2 of the creatures, and while he had hoped that the woman would appear, he didn't expect it. However, he wasn't really a warrior, so he ran out of stamina before he could face the 3rd one. And then all of a sudden, a brilliant white light flooded the woods. And when he uncovered his eyes, the Grim was gone. And a moment later, the woman appeared. So I was right. The Silver Eyes did play a part in this story. Just not in the episode. Okay. She's like, "You're developing a bad habit coming back into these woods." And as he sheaths his sword, he thinks, "Is this just wishful thinking, or does she seem a little happy to see me?" And she's wearing one of the outfits that he'd given her the year prior. And this time she only had the shortened sword side of the billhook. There was no pole. Like, "Yeah, I knew you'd come to my rescue." It's like, "I told you I didn't save you this time. Fortunately, you did pretty well on your own. Well, thanks for watching over me, at least. Not just today, but always." And it's like, she's like, "Why do you keep coming back?" And she's like, "Don't tell me you're in love with me." And he's like, "No, I just brought you some food." So "I have food." But she still opens the bag and pulls out a bunch of homemade sweets. And They even make note of her expression lightening and happily munching down on some cookies, which, considering she's a silver-eyed warrior with a cape and black hair, mayhaps she's a rose. But yeah, she's like, I haven't had anything like this in a long time. And as the boy turns to leave and she munches down on her feast, she's like, don't come back. The next year, the man came back again, and this time he made his way to the center of the woods, where he found a nice hut and the woman waiting for him outside it, with a small table with 2 seats, 2 cups, and a steaming pot of tea. So, now what do you want? I was in the neighborhood, figured I'd stop by. So, like, didn't see any Grimm this morning. Yeah, I cleared them out earlier. We've got plenty of time. So he set down his weapons, which is a new sword, and a new billhook, which was his gift for her this year. She's like, why do you keep coming back and giving me gifts every year? It's to thank you. You've already done that. No need to keep coming back for that reason. It's like, you've saved me each time, and many times before. But can I ask you a question? And he's like, go ahead, ask. I can't promise I'll answer. Nothing is promised in life, but why? Why do you live in the woods alone? Why do you risk your life for strangers? Why do you protect the village? Why this village? And she says what she says in the episode about how her own family was killed by other humans, but she protects people because no one else would, and because some people are good, which gives her hope. She grabs the new weapon and stares at it appreciatively, and she's like, finish your tea and go. But he's like, you've spent all these years looking after us. I thought maybe it would be nice if someone looked after you for a change. Because that's what I can do. Because no one else will. As he leaves, she smiles and says, don't come back. But they both knew that he would. Over the next year, the village expanded right up to the edge of the forest, and then they started cutting down trees to make even more space for the village. And during that year, the Grimm, they started showing up and attacking and everything. And the people of the village started thinking, oh no, we've broken our promise to the forest in that we wouldn't venture into it, and now it's no longer going to protect us. But the boy, he knew the actual reason, and he was defending the village, anxiously counting down until the annual meetup day with the woman to make sure nothing had happened to her. As he went in, it was a non-stop fight to get to her home. And though he paused at each location they had met in the past, so the clearing, the bit further in, the creek, and her home, she was nowhere to be found. Finally, he did make it to her home and noticed her weapon propped up against the doorway. But her door had been completely ripped off the hinges, and the inside of the house was completely trashed. Whether by man or beast he couldn't tell, but it had been abandoned for a while, and the woman was clearly gone. So he grabbed her weapon and fought his way back to the village. And as he's going, he's like, soon the people in this town will need to leave, find somewhere new to live, because they're not going to be able to withstand the amount of Grimm that are attacking them for long. But until that day, he will protect them, because he can, and no one else would. But first, he needed to tell them the woman's story, so that they always knew who they had to thank for the many good days they had enjoyed. And it's like, as he finishes the story, it's like, I wish I could have been there for her, the way she was there for us. If she was dead, she died alone. But why did you keep going back year after year? Because she saved you? For that reason, but also because I fell in love with her the moment I saw her silver eyes. And Osmond's notes about this, they're pretty much just reiterating the themes of this. He's like, more than a few huntsmen and huntsmistresses cite this story as one of their childhood favourites, and there are some more fantastical versions of the tale, embellishments that add nothing to its overall message or anything, but the least believable aspect of any retelling is that a child could grow up in Remnant not knowing what the Grimm were. This story is often used as a cautionary tale intended to discourage children from wandering off too far or from relying too much on the help of others. But the most enduring and I think most inspirational aspect of the story is one which many have taken to heart, which is what the warrior was doing. If you can protect someone, you should protect them. Well, if you can help others, it is your responsibility to do so. Basically, it's a with great power comes great responsibility message. It's like, whether that means fighting evil single-handedly or baking cookies, for kindness is as rare as silver eyes. It is up to the reader to decide for themselves, for each according to their own abilities. But yeah, so that is the final story from this book. Now, I may go through, make an additional video, just giving a brief touching upon for the other stories. So, The Man Who Stared at the Sea, the Infinite Man, The Two Brothers, The Story of the Season, and The Gift of the Moon. I may go through and make another video just talking about those so that all the information from this book is relayed. But overall, I enjoyed it. There were some interesting changes between the source and the show, but one, I'm chalking that down to these are very short episodes, like between 5 and 8 minutes, and well, it's also the fact that every retelling of a fairy tale is different. Like, we have numerous retellings of the same story in every form of fairy tale, like Rapunzel, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. All of those all have several different versions. So for a book about fairy tales and this to be the similar themes but different makes sense from if that's the way you want to excuse it, you can do it that way. There's also the fact that these do hold different names, which can also relate to the whole different retellings of the same story. Like, this one's RWBY Fairy Tales, this one's Fairy Tales of Remnant. Like, sort of like Brothers Grimm versus Hans Christian Andersen. And, yeah. So overall, it was a good series. I still would have preferred to see the Infinite Man instead of the Girl in the Tower, because I feel like we didn't really need that additional segment from Salem's backstory. We did get the idea of it from The Lost Fable, whereas the Infinite Man, we've not seen anything about that, and that is a lore story as well. Sort of like The Indecisive King. And I guess you could say that the Warrior in the Woods as well, because that is talking about Silver Eyes. But yeah, I do like how they changed it to be Ty telling that story to RWBY. That was a nice touch. But yeah, each of these stories was recorded by a different person. You've got The Warrior in the Woods, which was Glinda, as I said. You've got The Man Who Stared at the Sun, which is anonymous. The Shallow Sea is traditional. You've got The Hunter's Children, which was Oobleck. You've got The Indecisive King, which is anonymous. You've got The Grim Child, which is traditional. You've got The Judgment of Faunus, which is Professor Lionheart. You've got The Infinite Man, which is actually credited to Ozpin. Okay, that sort of goes against my theory about certain ones being from Ozpin as well. That's a long one. You've got The Tale of Two Brothers, which is by Crow. Then give me the next page. You've got The Story of the Seasons, which is traditional. And then you've got The Girl in the Tower, which is anonymous, and The Gift of the Moon, which is traditional. Now, that sort of goes against my whole, the anonymous ones are Ozpin. Because, well, going with that, then The Story of the... Well, no, I guess The Gift of the Moon should have also been, like, traditional or anonymous. What did I read it as? I've already forgotten. But yeah, so... Yeah, that was tradition. It seems like I can still reason that some of the unknown ones are Ozpin. Just he doesn't want them related to himself because they actually are related to himself. But then why would he do the Infinite Man? Because The Story of the Seasons was Ozpin. The Gift of the Moon, that's actually while Ozpin was dead the first time. I'll get into that if I do the additional one. But yeah, there was a couple ones that are lore-based or lore-based, which are just retelling of actual events that we know the truth of, but the people in Remnant don't. That are just their way of explaining certain things. But yeah, I like the series. I would have liked to have seen them all realized, but I understand that this was a sort of a weird thing. Didn't get really much eyes on it, so I can understand them not doing another season. Especially when, of the stories that are left, half of them we know in its entirety. Like, we know the truth about it, so... Yeah. Anyway, with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one.